Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Mrs. Allen? Here. Mr. Lucas?
Here.
Mr. Martin?
Here.
Mr. Skorzinski?
Here.
Mr. Cronin?
Here.
Mr. Jevons?
Here.
Mr. Satori?
Here. You'll join me for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Need a motion to approve the agenda, but I see that the committee of the whole does not have a public comment on it, so I'd like to add that right at the beginning there after the approval. Any objections to that? Nope. Okay, so I need a motion to approve the agenda with that addition.
So move.
Second. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Motion carried. Okay, we do have a couple of comments. Kristen Crouch wants to speak about the kids' participation in Minooka Indian sports.
Let me just stay seated or
Yeah, that's wherever you want.
Okay. Board members, as some of you know, I'm the mother of 8 children. My 2 oldest graduated from District 201 and now attend Minooka High School. Last year I had 3 children attending 201 schools, and next fall I will have 2, 1 kindergartner and 1 second grader at Aux Sable. There's still 2 more little Crouches at home who will also be attending 201 schools in the future. I think it's obvious that I'm thoroughly invested in this district and that I believe in public education. That being said, I also believe in the uniqueness of each individual. I recognize that there are certain times in life when we must be able to acknowledge that our kids' needs change. Not every child is the same, and school experiences are not static. What works for one child one year may not be the best for them next. It's my job as a parent to determine what is best for my children. Tim and I have decided that our 7th grader and our 5th grader would be best served by being homeschooled for a time. This choice should not be interpreted as a criticism of District 201 or a public school in general. Clearly, with 4 other children still all attending public schools, I haven't thrown in the towel or given up on that path. There are many wonderful things that can only be experienced as a district student. First, students have an opportunity to develop great relationships with teachers and coaches. These are often the people who impact our kids for the better forever. Also, students have an opportunity to develop great relationships with their teammates. They share common goals and learn to respect and appreciate one another as peers. Last, students have an opportunity to be part of the Minooka Indian family. They get to experience the responsibilities and the pride that come from representing their community as an Indian. I'm here tonight to ask the board members to acknowledge the needs of all the children of the district. I'm here to ask the board members to recognize that all kids who live in the district, whose parents pay faithfully their fair share in property taxes, which help to fund our schools, all our kids deserve these same opportunities. And I'm not alone in asking for this to be acknowledged. The state of Illinois law states that equal access must be granted to all district students, both in-school students and homeschool students. What I'm asking of the board tonight is to create a policy which would allow homeschooled kids the same opportunities to play for and represent the Minooka Indian teams. I'm not asking for any special privileges or loopholes. I'm only asking for my children, as well as any other homeschool children who are interested in participating in sports, to be allowed the same opportunity as their peers in the community. In my particular situation, I have 2 children who would love to run for the Minooka Indians. It would be so wonderful for my kids to maintain their connections with their wonderful coaches and their teammates. I also want to add that welcoming all the community's kids benefits the students who attend Minooka schools as well. We talk a lot about diversity, tolerance, and acceptance of differences in our schools. What better hands-on, real-life example can we offer the students of Minooka schools? They would learn that even those kids who don't walk the same halls as them Monday through Friday care about Indian pride, care about working hard, practicing, sacrificing for the good of the team. I'd like to offer to help those board members on the policy committee develop an appropriate policy that everyone could feel comfortable with. I know that if we sit down and talk about it, we can find a way to develop a policy that affords equal opportunity to homeschooled kids to participate in school sports. Thank you.
Well stated, and I will turn that over to the policy committee for them to consider.
So we don't have that today?
I thought
we did, because my daughter has some friends that would homeschool that we had to field.
For 201?
So what, yeah. And that was,
but we will look into it.
yeah, 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
Okay. Thank you. And Michael Folsom?
Hang on a second.
And what is your comments are about one of our board members?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then we're going to have that in the executive session.
Okay.
So we'll do that when we go into executive session. Sorry to catch that.
Very well.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Kindergarten enrollment.
All right.
Where are we at?
Let me, you have on your tables, there is the latest staffing enrollment as of, it's dated June 24th. It's got green and yellow on it. I just wanted you to look at that. That is up to the last moment where we are kindergarten-wise and the numbers we have per section, as well as the number of people who are looking for half-day versus full. You'll see that in each of the 4 elementary schools, right at this point, we've got very nice small numbers. Aside from particular, Minooka Elementary, right now we only have 4 sections hired, so that would be 22.75. I'm certainly not asking for people at this particular point, but I guess I'm kind of would like to get a feel for where you are. The numbers are very low, and we certainly would like to keep them around 22 or 23. I guess if no other students showed up, we'd probably just fill the one at the elementary school, but I don't know that we would need any others at this point. However, we still have a couple of registration days that haven't come around yet, and sometimes at some of the schools they register late, so I'm hoping by July we would have better, more solid numbers for you, but I wanted you to know that's where we are at this particular point with numbers. Does anybody have a concern about those, one way or the other?
Historically, how many children come to kindergarten when they enroll in August? Do we know?
We have sometimes a third of the kids sometimes show up then. It's just that late, and we put out a lot of information. But, you know, last year as an example to you, Oxable kids that were here for kindergarten, there were 138 kids. We've got 90 kids, and maybe that could just be the cycle. But we anticipate more. I know I spoke with the principal at Jones. He thinks 80. Last year they had around 84. That might not be too bad a number. It just seems we're a little low at this particular point on kindergarten, so I just wanted to bring it to your attention, assuming I know we'd like to keep the class sizes low, but when they're at 18 and 17, I don't want anybody to go over the edge just yet, because it's important that we keep them low, particularly there. But the other thing I would draw your attention to, just on these, you'll see there are the green ones on here, just so you know, those are people that we're hoping that you'll approve tonight. Yeah, you have the green and yellow. As well as you have the listings for the junior high and the intermediate school. We have 3 or 4 other people They just haven't been sent for prints. We just got information. We have a social worker, and we've got a psychologist, and some of the other more, if you will, difficult positions to find. Not that math and science and those aren't, but psychologists, they're kind of difficult. So we're in pretty good shape, actually, for hiring. We just have just a few certified positions left, and probably more program assistants, that type of stuff. But we also, as a service to people who are looking to become professional paraprofessionals, we offer the test here so they can take it as well. And we've been having people since May, probably at least 3 or 4 people a month who are interested in doing it come in and take the test. So it's just a matter of ETS. But I just wanted to bring this to your attention. If you had any concerns or things that popped out at you that you wanted us to make sure we paid attention to. Otherwise, we'll keep updating this and get it back to you.
When are the next, there's 2 more registration dates?
One in July, and then we send out information about going to the schools to do it as well. I think we have one more in July,
One more in
17th or
July
something.
18th, I think it is. Yeah. You usually have a pretty good turnout.
I hope so. We have, last year, we had a lot of people show up probably the week before school started. You know, and I don't know how to combat that unless we do the process a little differently with take-home backpack type registration, as we've tried it in the past to do. But a lot of people last year, that first week or so, or the week before, I'm sorry.
You know what? Go ahead.
The ones that you still have to have, fingerprint or whatever, background checks on, are they listed here tonight yet?
No, they're not, because their prints haven't come back, and they've not come in necessarily to talk about salary and benefits and those types of things.
Okay.
You know, when I look at the class sizes for kindergarten right now, and if you look at the 4 grades below them, first, second, third, and fourth, and even if you take the smallest class, because there's always fluctuations in size, if it is at least as big as the smallest class, we have a lot of children still coming.
Yes.
Jones would have 12 kids, children coming. Aux Sable would have, let's see, the next smallest is 160, 26 more children coming in there. That doesn't just compare them to the first grade, but the smallest of the groups. And Walnut, well, see, Walnut is actually a little bit above.
Yeah.
Or they look like maybe they're right on target. And Minooka Elementary with 85, if they match the smallest group, which is the first grade, that's 95. There's 10 more children. There's probably 50 more that haven't come yet.
Do we have a pool of teachers that, you might still be able to, haven't gotten other jobs that you could pull from?
Yeah.
Or should we go ahead and just
We had
approve at least one more?
We had hundreds of applicants for the kindergarten. It was tough to narrow it down. We had that many applicants. So we do. You'd think we would have more numbers. However, again, you see, if you look in 3rd grade across the way, there was kind of a bubble, and then not so much. So I don't know. It's a tough call. I hate to have to come to you in June and say, geez, or I mean in July, and say, now we need 2 more teachers because we're at 24, 25 kids.
And you still might do that.
And that's why I wanted to bring it to your attention. We can do that, or you know what? As we get closer, when people come in and we do get those numbers, we'll just update you, and then you can kind of go from there.
Well, we should be comfortable if we approve hiring based on
numbers. I would love that,
because then you could get started a lot sooner.
Right.
because then we could have that pretty much scheduled. And yes, that would be great. And would that be maybe like a couple people just in
That's
case?
what I would say, that if we could pre-approve for 2 more positions based on
That would be fine. That'd be perfect.
registration.
Perfect.
And we'll do that at the regular meeting first.
Yes.
What were the numbers that Al based the funding on from the state? Additional 200?
But I think he just doubled what we had this year.
Or took, or took a little half, because we had about 430 some half-timers, so that was around 200 full-time. I think is what he was referring to. So, That's all. I just wanted to bring it to your attention and that we're staying with it.
Okay.
And I think, special ed wise, I think we're in pretty good shape. I've talked to Tiffany and the principals, and it seems like we're okay at this particular point, but that's always depending on people that come into the district. All right?
Okay. Building grounds.
The next item there is buildings and grounds. You'll recall when Jerry is retiring in October, and we hired Kevin to fill his position. And then there has been discussion, in fact, we discussed it last month just briefly, about whether we would fill Kevin's position with one person or two people, just because of the size of the district and the necessity and the various maintenance things that are there that need to be done. There wasn't any final outcome on that one way or the other, so I wanted to bring it to your attention as to what would be your pleasure. I know Jerry, I spoke with him and Kevin today. Their preference still would be two people if it were all possible because of the numbers of things that need to be done. They would both be doing maintenance, but some of the things like the mail run, the mowing, all that type of stuff would still stay with those two maintenance people rather than having to have somebody else do it. I know it says in here, you know, there's a salary of maybe 45. As we even talked about that, if the board was to approve two people, probably even 40,000 if you could look at that, because that's still nearly doubling their salary compared to what they would make from a beginning point of view. So I don't know where the board is on this, but it's something I guess I'd like some discussion from you as to what it is your preference would
Now,
be.
you're not really talking about adding two people, you're adding one additional.
You're really adding one additional, because we're going to split somebody from the two buildings anyway. So it's one additional.
Okay.
It's just the salary would be there.
You know, when we think about that, we should keep in mind that our largest intractable deficits are in the O&M fund and the transportation fund. So I would hesitate to start adding to that. The O&M fund has a deficit of 17% of its expenditures.
Do we have a little breakdown of exactly what each of them would do? That's that much more? I mean, I don't.
I spoke with Jerry today. Aside from whatever basic maintenance, this takes apparently a lot of time, keeping that up. The radiators, that type of stuff, servicing the different things that need to be done, and then those issues that come up, like with the water and all that type of stuff. I don't have a complete list for you. So that's where we were.
Food service.
Food service, you have in your packet there, I wanted you to be aware that partly due to kindergarten and full day and the number of students that are going to be needed, because of the number of students, the additional assistance that we're going to need in the cafeteria to be able to meet the serving in time. A couple of people maybe have to be hired, but then a couple other people, some time would be extended. Still, they would be below that benefits, but it would cost around $19,000 to be able to make sure that there's enough staff at each of the buildings to be able to serve everybody efficiently, get the food out while it's hot, warm, and the whole thing, and still be able to, and then to get everything done, the cleaning and all those types of things. In addition, on the bottom of page 11, you saw the final free and reduced numbers there, which if it comes up, stays at that rate for the coming year, you'll see that as of October, not this year, but October of next year, if those numbers stay, Minooka Elementary will have to have breakfast. And we have several others that are going to be close to that in no time at all.
You offer it, or you have to offer it if nobody takes it?
We have to offer it. That's
So it may or may not be an expenditure just depending.
correct, but we do have to offer it.
But it wouldn't actually happen until next year?
It wouldn't happen this 15-16 school year because we haven't made, the numbers are based on the 9/30 enrollment for the next year.
Okay.
So, because we were worried this year, because at the 9:30 enrollment this year, they were at 38%. But no, it's the year following when you hit that magic threshold of 40%.
How's the federal reimbursement on that? Pretty close to pays for it?
Yes, yes. It's substantially higher. It's not as good as free, but nearly. It's almost does, yes. All right.
Would we have to do it in all the school stuff?
No, that would be an option the district could make, but you have to provide it in the one school that meets those requirements.
Yeah.
All right?
If you provided it in the other schools, you wouldn't get a federal reimbursement, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
What makes one school, you have to educate me, what makes one school be able to get federal, the others won't?
It's all based on income. And so if a school with all the students that are there, including kindergarten, and this year we had to include the kindergartens from here as well by school, even though they weren't in the schools. But if you have 40% or more of your population that falls below the poverty line, then they're eligible for free meals or reduced meals, and in this case it would be for free breakfast as well. So it has to do with the family income.
Do we send those particular kids to one school?
No,
now?
they go to all the schools.
I'm confused then. How do you differentiate them?
How do I?
If you look at,
If you look on page 11, you'll see at the bottom, Kurt, there are all the free and reduced, very bottom.
Oh, I see.
There's for every school, based on their population and the income and what parents do. And one of the things that has changed that has really made a difference this year, you probably know more about it, but we get direct certification in addition to parents filling out an actual application for free or reduced meals.
Right.
The direct certification comes from the state though, and we might question it because there are some people who we do question, but if it comes from the state, they're an automatic. Free, reduced, we waive the fees, we have to do the whole thing there. And so a lot of these numbers really probably have gone up anywhere from 5 to 7 or 8 percentage points just based on the direct certification that we get from the state. It's kind of a catch there.
Yeah.
So we're close, aside from Walnut Trails, you can see we're mid-30s on about everything. It won't be long, probably, as we now start to grow more.
well, it looks like we may have a pilot program next year at elementary, and then the following year we may be picking up.
We'll get it in place for everybody, then we'll have the kinks knocked out of it.
So it looks like.
I just have a question, as I'm looking at the times that are listed here. Sable has 25 minutes, for all the other buildings have 20 minutes. Is that actual eating time? that we're looking at here, or what?
It appears that's what that is, unless we made it earlier when we wrote it up. That would be the times that they're gonna serve the food to the kids.
They serve and eat?
Yes. It may take a little longer. Yeah, but 11 to 11:25 is there. Yeah, because then you'll see second grade comes at 11:05. So you're saying
All the
there's
other buildings
there are 20 minutes?
are 20 minutes. Unless I'm not.
Okay, no, you're right. I'll check on that.
Yeah, but I'll Sable, it's overlapping, maybe that's the reason. First grade cover is 11:05.
Yeah,
It seems like the other ones are just one class at a time.
they're separate, that's it, right. Thank you. They are overlapping. And he has more kids as well. Of all the schools. But I'll check. So that's one thing, we would need that approval to be able to hire additional staff or give a bit more time to be able to meet the needs of getting everybody through in those times so that they could eat, get outside and run that stuff around as well. The personnel, you have that listed. I don't, those are all we're just asking for your approval when you go through. There's a lot of them. That's that, unless you have a question. The nurse, I just, in the past, and some of you were on the board, I think even then, we had a head nurse several years ago when Rena Minosi was here. There was a pay differential. So we were gonna try and work with the MESP, because now one nurse has to be required. They're not a certified nurse from the point that they would be on the teacher salary schedule, but they're a certified nurse for the classes, because you're required this year to have one available for every staffing, or as appropriate that they need to be at. We have at least one nurse that has that certification right now, but we've not ever been able to get back to the head nurse, and it would really require a memorandum of understanding with the MESP. So that's kind of where we are with it, but we probably would come back to you at some point and say, yeah, we're going to need this. In the past, it was like a $1 differentiation, $1 per hour differential, I'm sorry, for that head nurse, but that's coming.
We're still in that negotiation.
It's so that no action or anything is needed there. The district office wants to talk about that in the first year. Same with the bargaining. I believe it's just kind of stopped at this point with the MESP. The interfund loan, you saw in their request, we were requesting like $900,000. However, I guess if it's any good news, we really don't need $900,000. We started to get a little bit of tax money in today. We have about $100,000 in. So probably it'd be more likely the $800,000. But when you make it, it would be up to $850 or something like that. We don't think we'll need it, but just to make sure that we're covered.
It's only a temporary loan anyhow.
Until June
Because it'll
30th.
just go right back once the tax.
That's
rate is
exactly right. All right. The MEEA bargaining contract, you have that. We met with the association the other day just to go through it to make sure we were all kind of talking the same language. Our hope is that you would approve that. There were probably, and I know you're not interested probably, but there are 7 little errors or spaces or letters or something like that that we changed after we met with them. But we're hoping at the regular board meeting that you will approve that. And Vicki and Al, I don't know if there's anything else you guys wanted to say about it.
But when we discussed it at the regular board meeting, if you have any questions about it, we were there for all the meetings.
Well, let me actually talk about that and talk about, I guess it's a lot of topics rolled into one, but they all have to do with spending. We're putting together our budget, right, Dr. Polnick?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So as we do that, I think we should keep some things in mind. So there's been a lot of talk about the need for an education fund referendum, and a certain amount, I think, of unnecessary discussion of possibly cutting teachers or programs if we don't have that referendum. But I think if we look at the data and where we actually are, there's no need to talk about the possibility of cutting teachers or programs without an education fund referendum. I don't.
Remember that discussion?
We didn't talk about that.
What, about an education fund referendum?
No, about cutting.
Oh,
I don't remember any discussions about it.
well, the
Never
former
considered.
superintendent said that without an education fund referendum, we would be in a place where we'd have to cut programs or teachers. I mean, if you guys agree that that's not the case, then I guess a lot of this is unnecessary, because our largest financial problems are not in the education fund. Okay, they are in the O&M and the transportation fund. If you look at the expenditure report and the revenue report that we got, and you could actually just go back to the budget and look at it and crunch the numbers, the deficit in the education fund, even though it's the largest by dollar amount, is the smallest by percentage. It's 2.3%. It's $640,000, we'll call it. Okay? So I'm glad there's agreement that there's not going to be any cutting of programs or teachers, because as our revenues go up, as the economy slowly recovers from 2 things. 1, the property values of existing properties are increasing, and 2, additional properties are coming online. The only thing we need to do to balance the ed fund is actually have some more fiscal discipline about spending, okay? And that goes into all of these things that we're talking about, staff salaries, the MEEA, the MESP. Now, the MEEA agreement is a 3-year agreement, and I guess one of the things that I hesitate with that is we're going to have a new superintendent soon. And to some extent, if we agree to a 3-year contract there and then agree to a 3-year contract with the MESP, we're tying their hands to some extent, right? We're locking in those expenditures over 3 years, okay? And you know, the MEEA agreement has a 4% raise over 3 years. And let me just give you an idea of what could actually easily close the gap. We're talking about a 4% increase there. We're talking about a 4% increase in administrative staff salaries. I assume that the MESP is going to come and say, well, 4%, it's only fair to get 4%. Okay? The difference between just a 3% raise over 3 years and a 4% raise over each of 3 years is roughly $600,000, which is the deficit in our education fund.
We're not, you're preempting some of our negotiations here, and especially with the AMD.
Yes, and I'm preempting them for a reason.
Well, I understand that, but let's let our people negotiate that instead of setting our
Jim, I think the point that I'm trying to make is that we need to keep this in mind while we're negotiating
I
it.
hope we do with our negotiations. We have, we'll have people doing that, and that's what we're looking to do.
But we don't have a multi-year plan to erase this deficit. We sit here and we discuss these things as kind of one-off things, not as an overarching plan to get back to a balanced budget, right? If we had an overarching plan and said, here's how we get to a balanced budget in 3 or 4 years, okay? And then we said, we can afford this, this, and this. And went into negotiations saying, okay, we can afford this. We can afford this raise, and it fits into the puzzle here. And then the next negotiation, and it fits here. Then I would say that this is not necessary. But without a plan, all we do is approve these things like onesies and twosies. And then when we create the budget, we have to take those things as given, rather than saying, what can we afford, and then fitting the pieces into the puzzle. We're creating the puzzle pieces and then jamming them together, and then we have a picture that may not work.
Well, I understand that, Doug, but we've got people that are going to be working on that, and your information to them for working on that is appropriate.
Okay. But who's putting the budget together?
Well, right now, Dr. Polnick and the Finance Committee, they're working on that right now.
Right.
It isn't there yet. And,
But how
do that is,
just a question, how are you putting the budget together? What assumptions are you using? Have we given you any direction as to we want to have a balanced budget, or we're okay with a deficit?
only you.
Right. But our job as a board is to give direction to the
I
administration.
think you've just done that, so thank you, Doug.
Well, I didn't realize that I had that power.
Well, it's not the power, it's the information that you just gave.
Okay, but I think it would be helpful to the administration, because this board acts as 7 members who discuss and vote, right?
Yes.
And so one member giving them direction, they're not legally obligated to follow that.
No, you're not giving them direction, you're giving them information.
Okay. Again, yeah, the information's all there, but we as a board need to give the administration direction. Otherwise, all due respect to Dr. Polnick, he's doing this blind.
And we will be.
He's just you're probably just taking the old budget and saying, well, I'm going to just increase it by a certain. Okay. How are you putting the budget together?
Someplace, whether it's zero
So
or
explain to me
whatever.
how you're putting the budget together.
Colleen and I are looking what's been done over the past couple of years, and then we'll go from there, and we'll visit what different
So you have last year's budget,
And the year before.
right, with all the various numbers in it. So when you're constructing this budget, what kind of growth rate are you assuming? Are you assuming zero growth, 1%, 2, 3? You have to assume something.
Not yet. He's working on it. You don't assume anything. You work on it and try to develop it. Don't assume that. You develop it.
Okay. You have to assume something.
You know what assume is?
How do you develop the budget?
By looking at all the costs and the figures and the things that you have to do and the things you have to pay for. I mean, you do it by what the figures that are there and the things that you have to do.
Well, right, but the only figures that are there are historical data.
That's-
Well, if all we do is enter the last year's spending, then that's easy. But we're talking about things that are raising the largest component of the budget. If you look at the ed fund,
and like
the
you said,
salaries and
if-
benefits.
Like you said, if we do that, we haven't done that yet.
Okay.
So it's an if. You can do a lot of ifs. Let them work on the budget.
We
So when the budget is developed,
Yes.
is then the time to talk about?
no, because we only have 30 days, right? We never talk about the budget.
Well, we can. I mean, it's,
But you're telling me I don't need to.
no, you don't have a budget to talk about yet.
Well, Doug's trying.
I'm trying to start a conversation so that we can, as a board, give direction to the administration as to how to put the budget together, because the requirement is that we approve a budget by the end of the first quarter, which is September, right?
Yes.
And the other requirement is that we have to have a preliminary budget on file for public viewing 30 days before we approve a final.
Correct.
So typically what's happened in the past is we get a preliminary budget, we get a chance to ask questions about it.
Yes.
It never really changes. Whatever I mean, you can look back at the last years, and the preliminary budget basically becomes the budget. Okay, and as many as many times as I say, I think it would be good that we have a discussion about the budget and where we're going. We never do.
Well, we can have that or not have it. The choice is the board. Will be made by the board as a whole.
Okay, well, I'd like to have a special meeting to discuss the budget as we're going into the budget.
And we might do that. You can request that. If the board agrees to it, we'll do it.
Okay, but we're sort of putting the cart before the horse, right? If we have that discussion after we approve all the raises, it really doesn't matter, because it doesn't inform our decision making, right? Our goal to get to a balanced budget doesn't then inform the decisions. The decisions are made, and we're stuck with whatever effect that they have on the expenditure side of the house. Okay?
Yes, I understand.
I'd rather have the discussion about where we want to be. I mean,
So what's
A
the,
vision and a plan.
I mean, my vote would be to get to a balanced budget, and in the ed fund, I think that's relatively easy. We just have to control costs as the revenue increases.
so when is the latest that you can vote on the raises? I mean, does it have to be today, or can you,
It can
because
be-
you're going into
it
the
can
fiscal year, or
actually-
can you wait 30 more days, or?
It can actually be retroactive, and it has been sometimes in the past. And that's, part of that is, he's right, we do have a new superintendent coming. I'd very much like to have him as part of doing some of this. And that's why we haven't done anything with the MESP yet. Is because
Right.
we're kind of waiting, because we'd really like to have.
Right, but that's like the tail wagging the dog, right? Because the big contract is the MEEA contract.
Yeah.
And then the other contract tends to follow from that, and so do the administrative raises from that. And so once you approve that, it's harder to then take the other ones.
And that's what I just said, it doesn't have to be approved on that method. If we come down to further down the line in October and say 4% is okay because we broke out the budget, we could retroactively put it there. If we come down to October and say the money's not there, it doesn't get retroactive, it doesn't get put into that place.
Yeah, but I think we should have these discussions sooner rather than later. I mean, there's a,
Maybe we should have done that beforehand. We're still.
well, yes, we should have done it last year and the year before and the year before that, but we didn't.
Well, maybe with the new superintendent coming on board.
All right, but if we agree to a 3-year contract right now, we're tying their hands.
No, we haven't.
Okay.
done a 3-year contract yet.
I mean, because in my mind, you have to consider Plan B, and if you create a cost structure that's unaffordable under current revenue structures, right? And then the only way to fix that is to go to the taxpayers and ask for more money. If the taxpayers say no, then you are looking at cutting jobs and cutting programs, and I don't want to be in that position, right? I mean, it's one thing to go to the taxpayers and say, we want to offer new programs, or we have class sizes that we think are unreasonable, and we want the money to, deal with that and go out for a referendum. But in my mind, it's quite another thing to create a cost structure that's unaffordable at current expenditures, and then tell the taxpayers that they have to approve the referendum or else this or else that.
And Doug, you will have the opportunity to vote that.
Okay. When?
Well, when we approve or don't approve the increases.
Okay. But if we always talk about talking about it, then we never actually talk about it.
You just talked about it, so you get to vote your way, and then everybody else will get to vote their.
Okay.
There we go.
It's much nicer to have a long-term plan. I mean, like I said, in my mind, the education fund is the easy of the 3 large deficits. We're going to have really serious discussions about the O&M fund and the transportation fund, because the O&M fund deficit is 17, almost 18%, and the transportation fund is 13%.
And we're carrying a balance that will carry us for some period of time.
Well, I know, and that's why we have the luxury that if we act now, or if we had acted last year, the year before,
That surplus.
well, we can make program changes over time rather than making drastic changes once the money runs out, right? I mean, the problem with running a deficit is that we have surpluses, but eventually the surpluses run out,
Absolutely, but.
and then you have to make drastic changes.
And we've been over the years balancing that against where we're anticipating the increases coming in. Like you said, when the house prices are going up, the values are going up, the industry's coming in.
Well, I know,
We have
but
to balance that with that too.
well, right, and in the education fund where you're talking about a small percentage deficit, that I think is a viable solution. But in the other funds where the deficit is so much larger, I don't think that's going to be a viable solution.
That's what we'll be working on the budget for.
All right. Well, it'd be nice to schedule a special meeting to talk about the budget.
So should we wait though for the superintendent, or do you want to do it before?
Well, I would rather wait for the superintendent because they're the ones that were giving direction.
The problem is we can't wait very long because we have a time frame that we have to get it done by too.
Well, what if we approved the first year of the contract
Well, and then
rather than approving a 3-year contract?
And there's some possibilities.
Then we've only tied our hands for 1 year, and we can actually take a real hard look at this stuff and either say, yes, we can afford the other 2 years at 4%, or maybe we can afford them at 3%. Right? There's something that we can afford.
Okay.
But without setting out a plan and projecting,
I'd like to say-
it's like throwing darts.
I'd like to interject too. Over the course of the last couple of months, we've asked the board for input. We can have bargaining table. And we've received input from you guys.
Mm.
And what you're saying is not the same input that we received earlier.
Well, actually, part of it is, yes.
Maybe part of it, yeah.
Well,
Maybe part,
yeah.
or maybe not. And a sudden switch in direction that's not a good way to run a school district either.
Well, how is it a sudden switch in direction? I kind of feel like a broken record. I've been talking about the same thing like every year. I'm sure people in the audience think I sound like a broken record too.
Well, and that's why we have 7 people on the board. Everybody gets to have an opinion, and it's voted on, and the majority rules. Okay, let's move on.
Yep.
Kindergarten iPad.
You asked last time that we would take a look at non-iPad devices. We did. We've looked at the iPad minis as well. As you can see just from what I wrote, and Aaron is here to substantiate, about 60% of the applications are not applicable to on non-Apple devices. We purposely also this year looked at using iPads in the kindergarten because of ease of use, because of the things they can do and whatnot. And the classrooms, the teachers and the students and the parent feedback that we got was very positive. I realize they're more costly, but there are benefits to, there are some discount, if you will, to buying those apps as opposed to the non-Apples as well. But in the meantime, we also did look at iPad minis that are about approximately $95 cheaper than the full iPad. We had teachers look at it, we had kids look at it, I played with it. And the cost differential between a full-size iPad and the iPad minis is about $9,000. We would still stay with the recommendation to the board that we go with the iPads, however we would do iPad minis.
What would be the reason for having the iPad minis or iPads in the first place for kindergarten kids?
Oh man, they use technology all the time, probably more effectively than some of the other kids, and they're not afraid to use it. It's excellent for reinforcing reading, writing, math, all of that. I think it's an excellent tool for them to use so that by the time they get to this 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, where we're using the Chromebooks and the more complex things, it's an easier switchover for them to be able to use to get to those as well. But we want them to be technology literate. We don't have an option in today's society.
I've seen a program that you'd be using, an app that you'd be using with them. Would these things be teaching the kids the ABCs with the apps, or in one?
It would be reinforcing all of those things.
Would they learn off of it?
They would learn or reinforce the learning that they're getting from the regular classroom teacher. Like we use Jolly Phonics, so we learn the sounds and the letters. The iPads, again, the applications that we have will reinforce all those things. It's fun for the kids. It's motivating. It captivates them. It's high interest for them. And since this is their first entry into the public schools, we want to make sure that we accentuate all those things. And its ease of use is just phenomenal to reinforce, and it could be at centers, so we not only can we reinforce what's being taught by the teacher, but they can extend it as well. That's what the whole purpose of it is for, so that they're as technologically literate as they can be. They can help one another. Part of the kids thing, the Kindergarten Individual Developmental Survey requires that kids work together in groups. It's something we have to observe, we have to assess starting this next year. That's a perfect time for kids to work together on technology, to find information, to look things up even, and to apply the different applications that we have to be able to come up with something together as well, in addition to themselves. Aaron, is there anything you wanted to throw out?
No, it's very much, it's been pretty successful. We did this pilot with 2 teachers at FPC and then later on a couple at Jones. And honestly, everyone's pretty much been very happy with it. From a technology standpoint, it's not difficult, which is nice. The only thing we have to do is make sure we buy a nice case that can be dropped or sneezed on and not break the equipment. That will happen. So besides that, that's the only thing left in the puzzle, essentially to purchase. And but from what I've talked to some the teachers who used it, I've been there obviously with the kids. It seems like that's when they break into their centers and some kids over here, some kids there's always this pep in their step, as I like to say, when they're walking towards to pick up the iPad versus maybe another activity. So that's kind of what I've seen in my limited.
We don't necessarily want technology, I don't want technology taking over the learning, but certainly if it can add to it and make that person who's maybe on the borderline reader or even a very good reader even better, then why wouldn't I use that as a motivational tool for the kids?
Wouldn't, like this here screen's here and have a keyboard here, that don't work?
I wouldn't recommend it because it's right there. So if I'm going to come over here and work with a group of kids, or if I want to do something special with a group of kids, I can't get up and move that around.
Yeah,
But if I have something portable.
You're educating me on this, how the classrooms work.
Okay. Yeah, that to me is critical. They're portable. The nice thing about the minis too is for the little people's hands, this is my point of view, we have one at home. Kids love it. My grandson loves it. It's easy. He can do anything on there. He can write on there. He does it, and then we can go any place and do it. Likewise, if they did centers on reading or writing or math, she can have a bunch of different groups. I know we're not getting 1,000 of them, but we're getting a starting point. They can go different places, and then also they can become the experts on sharing some of this information with some of the other kids in their groups as well. All part of what's required in the new state assessment for kindergarten as well. We're hitting a lot of indicators. I hate to use that word. A lot of things the state would like us to do. That allows us to do it as well. Technology.
Do they also have computers in the classroom, or is this basically taking the place of?
The ones that they took them
The
out.
plan right now, we have aging student computers in the room right now. So the idea is, they're still running in the room in the table. If you want them to be in the room, then we'll keep them in there and keep them running as long as we humanly can. We've already had several requests from some teachers. Get them out of here. They want the space. They don't like the table that's just 24/7 dedicated to 3 big screens and keyboards and mice. So I honestly think it's going to be, since those classroom computers are essentially on their way out, the iPads will be the primary use, and then the teachers who would like them, continue using them. For those who want the space, who don't want to use them, I don't see a reason why we can't just pull them out and use them as spares so the other ones fail for people who want to use them.
The iPads are replacing.
Right, basically. All right, that's that. Prevailing wage, you have that there. It just does need board approval, as well as the National School Lunch Program that we do that every year. You also have the cogeneration agreement, settlement agreement that we do need your approval on so that we can get back. I don't have, unless, Lori, do you have anything on the school board convention?
The only thing on that is that we did get the Hyatt again, and the conference preview packet will not be ready till August, so once I get that, I'll make sure we get a copy of it.
Okay.
And I think everybody signed up that's planning on going.
Yes.
All right, great.
Yes.
Aaron, did you want to address the summer project, particularly Outlook and whatnot?
Yeah. So we migrated over to a Google email to save a bunch of money, if you guys remember from previous mentions. I'm still actually copying over walnut trails as the last school. Unfortunately, I underestimated the amount of emails all the staff have. So one building alone literally had over 700,000, and you can only copy so many a second. So you just kind of let it wing, and you check on it the next day. But other than that, things have been going pretty well. I've done a couple little kind of in-services for like district office, kind of show them the tips and tricks. And to be honest, there's a lot of kind of fear going into it. But it seems like after sitting down with people who have never seen it before, and when you explain how things work, a lot of the comments are, "Oh, okay, that makes sense," or "Okay, it's over here. I can get used to that." And I haven't had any real big negative feedback yet, which is a bonus. When staff come back, we hope to make some nice videos for them to watch through, especially the staff who haven't used a Gmail account before, but luckily many newer staff have used it for colleges and other circumstances, so many people are already familiar with it already, which is a bonus. And other than that, the 2 other somewhat major projects are the Subfinder program, which we're working with to set all that up, so then that'll actually call substitutes, and it'll say, would you like to take this job at junior high? Press 1, So that will that'll save a lot of secretary administrative time finding subs, and as a board, you will pull reports or ask for reports with much greater ease and flexibility on the amount of professional development and things like that. So that'll be kind of a nice bonus there. And we're switching over to a different teacher evaluation online tool set, I guess you can call that.
Value-wise.
So we're working to take our evaluation checklist and Word document and digitize that into this other system that should make things easier for both the teacher and ultimately administrator to get feedback, pro against everything else. So those are three kind of major technology things.
Aaron, what's your target date for the program for calling in for the subs?
Basically, early August, we'd like to kind of get that hammered out, and what I'd like to do actually is, by then we should have some form of updated sub list for substitute teacher list, and I actually like to bring them in August and just kind of do like a 10-minute dog and pony show on this is how it works, this is an example phone call you get, and here's how you can also log in and check the website yourself if you want, because by default, like let's say Kyle is going to take next Monday off. Well, it was not going to start calling for next Monday jobs on Tuesday night. But if I'm an enterprising substitute employee, I can log into the website, and if it's available to me, and if my criteria match the job specific, I can grab it before he even starts calling people. Teachers will be able to post their own sick days right online, even from their phone, and then they'll start calling people. So it should really make the whole system just kind of groove a lot better. But yeah, basically there'll be a little bit of a learning hurdle for everyone, but I've seen the videos and everything. It does seem pretty easy, and should make life a lot easier for teachers and administration. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we're one of the few districts currently without an automated system in place. Most schools, especially our size or larger, have some form. There's been three different brands. When we ultimately selected the brand we purchased, or initially recommended, they actually got bought out by the bigger fish, if you will. And lo and behold, another one that was, I guess they let their salesperson go, and that's why I never really got very deep into them, because they never got back to me after a month. Anyways, this newer company is actually going to save us a couple $1,000 a year providing the same service, and so we're happy with that. It's called the eSchool Solutions, so it's actually going to be less of a O&M hit than what you guys have previously approved. So that's kind of nice. Yeah, I mean, it's basically what I've talked to from other principals. They've used this system and similar ones. It takes 95% of the jobs get filled without calling anyone personally, and that's right now any one of our principals would kill for that.
We'll have a few practice runs, like the first week of August, to make sure there are no glitches in the program.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have to do some I did talk with the training. We're going to have 2 large training days, one day for kind of Dr. Collin and his designee and myself to set up the back end of the system, and then another full day of training for principals and probably their primary secretary to learn the system, how to input jobs and take things away. From the teacher standpoint, training them is going to be pretty much just like a 10-minute video. They made it pretty easy for teachers to approve or to put in for a sick day, but if they put in for a day that requires pre-approval, such as a personal day, they can put in for that, but then the principal actually has to go into the system and approve or decline it. So there's a lot of things that they're thought out, which is nice.
I would just throw out that the outlook is really not that hard even for old people like me. It's been a challenge. It's been different, and it's just a matter of once you get used to it. But it does so many more things and capable of a lot more. So I personally am liking it, even though I hadn't used it before. The other thing I would mention on the evalu-wise, just so you know, that is through a vendor. It's through the PDA and Morris, but there's no cost to us this year at all. There's probably several hundred school districts in Illinois who are using it. They can put most of the forms and observational tools that we had on their system anyway. So it should be a real plus for us, and we're not worried about systems or whatnot going down like we currently have in the case of review.
One of our was talking about they using their district and they love it.
Yeah. Well, and we had several people also were talking about the Subfinder program, how I don't know if this is Joliet or Plainfield, so many are on it, and they have, they get all their subs, and it's generally always filled effectively. by using that system. So we're looking forward to putting that in place too.
You had a comment?
As far as ease of use, I just want to say Aaron did a wonderful job with the park training. He did an instructional video. I don't know how many minutes that was, but it was so easy, even for someone like me, to follow along. You could stop it, do what you're trying to do to log in, or register your kids for the test or whatever. But he did an unbelievable job with making it so easy to use the system, like the park that we just came out with. So I just would say I really look forward to it. I'm sure I'm confident that he's going to be able to roll it out and have it easy to use for us.
Okay.
Let me just go back to where we started, real quick. So board policy 7:40 says non-public school students will not be allowed to participate in any district extracurricular activities, regardless of whether they attend a district school part-time.
Do we have a policy
That does not allow. So if we want to allow that kind of access, we would need to change that. And we'd also have to look at the IESA policy,
Yes.
which does allow it, but what you have to do, you have to have some sort of, you need to look at what the homeschool student is doing, and someone needs to certify that it's equivalent or substantially equivalent to that grade level. Yeah.
We will look at that. Thanks.
Isn't that usually done by the superintendent, the county superintendent, or regional superintendent?
In terms
They
of the
monitor that
homeschool?
homeschooling?
Yeah, they're ultimately in charge, because once we get our letter, we don't do much more. So, yes, I'll check with them in 1 month.
Okay, I need a motion to go into executive session. We've got contracts and wages and things to do.
Before we do the regular,
Yeah, we have executive session.
oh, for that.
So move.
Second.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Mrs. Allen? Aye. Mr. Klukas?
Aye.
Mr. Swarzington?
Aye.
Mr. Cronin?
Aye.
Mr. Jevons?
Aye.
Mr. Satorius?
Aye. Motion carried. So moved.
Sorry, guys.